Welcome back, everyone. A little overdue for an update, and I've been meaning to work on some scenery for quite a while, and you know how it is, life gets in the way of your railroad time sometimes. So here's an area that I've finished, at least for the most part. And typically when you've got a rock cut here, you've got probably what was, somewhat or close to virgin forest for or that was there originally, and then when you disturb it for the railroad cut, many years ago, a lot of times what you'll typically see is at the edge of the forest canopy where the disturbances occurred, you'll get a lot of underbrush and other growth at the edge of the woods, whereas as you get deeper into a forest, there tends to be very little other than just leaf litter on the ground, simply because there's no light for underbrush to grow. So in this particular case, I used a lot of underbrush and shrubs just from woodland scenics. And while I'm somewhat happy with the color, texture, and overall appearance, you look at some areas and just it seems like the underbrush just isn't quite tall enough or open enough, brambly or viney. So I've looked at a bunch of other ways to do this. And just by the way, these are Scenic Express super trees, just to give you a sense of what the different materials were all the way around. So I've looked at some other methodologies and for making underbrush. And I think the first one I looked at that I was really intrigued by is Joey Ricard on tracksideScenery.com was using furnace filter that he kind of teased apart and then kind of clumped together. And I tried that. Now I think he was working in O gauge at that point in time, and I tried it and just wasn't quite satisfied with the texture for HO. And then Rob Bennett he was doing his teddy bear fur post and showed that at the top of his area there he's going to use coconut coir. And so I thought, I wonder if I could use the coconut for underbrush and kind of add leaves to it, kind of the way Joey Ricard was doing. So what I have done is a couple different things here, so it may not show up great. So this is the coconut coir with just fine turf sprinkled on it. Maybe not the greatest lighting. Oh, there you go. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. That gives a pretty good appearance. The coconut coir just has a little bit more rounded texture than the furnace filter, which tends to have real straight fibers. And so the coconut coir seems to just give a little bit better, and is obviously a very large piece. It seems to give me a more natural, and it's a natural product and fiber, obviously. So to me, it's a little bit more natural in its appearance. Still kind of toying with how to adhere it. I think this I just sprayed with a dark gray spray paint and sprinkled the fine turf on it. Probably needs to get a shot of scenic cement on top of it or something just to kind of hold it. I also tried using the coconut coir with scale leaves, and I'm not sure I prefer one to the other, but this actually just creates a shrub looking appearance, just that has a larger leaf, a coarser texture. So it might be a nice combination to use them, somewhat intermingled perhaps, as two different types or two different general, not species specific, but two different types of underbrush. So the area that I'm working on actually is the upper level here. I've painted all the rail sides and done this is all foam scenery. You can see this edge of the foam here. I just use ultra lightweight joint compound to kind of smooth the edges of the foam. And quite honestly, that's the only useful purpose I've ever detected from the ultra lightweight joint compound, because if you ever try to do sheetrock with it, it's virtually useless. But for model railroading, the ultra lightweight stuff works pretty well. So probably what I'll do, and I've got the backdrop painted in this area, and I've got just the base coat of latex paint with a little bit of foam on top of it, just to kind of create an a forest floor kind of scenario. So what I'll probably end up doing is working in this area behind the tracks first and kind of work my way front. Probably do the ballasting before I do the foreground scenery. And this is actually going to be intentionally a scenic block here. You can see if I kind of go back down to eye level. The intent will be that you lose sight of the train just for a little bit, since I'm so close together between areas in the layout. So just a little illusion to make the length a little longer. So I've only made 15 trees, and if my past experience proves to be accurate, that probably won't even get me done with the backside of these tracks here. But we'll get started and we'll see how the new underbrush experiment works out. Well, as I suspected, 15 trees just didn't go very far, so I'm probably going to need, I'd say, another 10 to 15 background trees, and maybe another 20 to 30 foreground trees. So just to do the backside of the tracks here. When I say background trees, I generally use a darker, I'll pan down here, I generally use a darker tree. These are a darker shade of foam, and then use a lighter green. You can see the trees in the background have a darker foam. I do that to just try and create some depth. So I generally make, I use all one color for each tree, but then I'll mix the lighter color for foreground trees and darker foam for background trees. But at this point, I think that's probably at least that area is done for the background trees, so I can start working on underbrush, and I'll plant the foreground trees, you know, in and among the underbrush, because again, that'll be near the edge that gets the additional sunlight. So more to follow. Well, 15 trees later, and we had enough to do the back side. Actually made a decision I wasn't going to do any foreground trees on the back side of the tracks, simply because it's actually a pretty deep section of bench area. Most of my shelf is pretty narrow. This is relatively deep, so I'll do the foreground or lighter colored trees on this side of the tracks, and hopefully that'll create the illusion of even additional depth. But put in all the different underbrush types, tried to mix them. Not sure if I mixed them too much, hard to tell, but the idea was you could kind of see under, in the taller areas, you can see the forest floor, but in the fringe, you know, at the edge, it's pretty much knotted up with different shrubs and so forth. And obviously, good I'm learning in this direction, because this foreground area will have trees. As I mentioned before, it'll be a scenic block, so if some of the stuff in the back isn't perfect, probably could be hidden somewhat anyway. So another benefit to starting in the back and working towards the front. But I'll try and get a little closer. Probably as far as I'll go until I get the ballasting done. Sometimes when you do the watered down white glue, it seeps into the scenery, so the area right next to the track sometimes gets polluted by that. So I'll usually do the ballasting first and then come back in and do the fine detail along the track. So that's probably what I'll do. I think I'm going to leave this bank mostly bare, but possibly at the bottom do some weeds and some other maybe grasses, things of that nature. So fortunate accident, the coarse leaves that I was using, I think those are Scenic Express scale leaves, the kind of the yellow or green, seem to match the backdrop pretty well in terms of the lighter areas where I tried to make it look like sun was hitting the trees in the painted area too. So that was kind of a fortunate but accidental occurrence. Did a little bit of work on the other side of the creek, but not much. So again, more trees will be needed. So that's what we have for now. But so I think it turned out okay, and maybe we'll have to run a train past it, see what happens.